The following content has been provided by RWTH, Aachen University.
Okay, hello, buddy. I will be shortly here because Philipp will do a long demo today. Before we start, can you switch to the next slide? We looked at the seminar schedule, so we have 10 topics, and these are the dates. The slides are already online. So you can see we have 2 talks every class, and what we will do is that we will have a preparation meeting 1 week before you actually have to present. So when you have on the 26th your presentation, we will meet on the 19th and the same way as C. So these are the topics. If you have big problem with these dates, let us know today. So we fixed it in this thing, but if there are gigantic scheduling problems, please let us know after the lecture maybe. And then we can figure out if we can shift this around a little bit if there are some big issues. So slides are already online. Yeah, so what we do now is what we want to have on these review dates to actually have, you should have your slides roughly ready at that time, so week before, so that we can actually go through that thing and help you a little bit structure and say, okay, this is something that you should change, or that is something that you could update, and we want to actually see, talk about like 15 minutes roughly with each group before you actually, 1 week before you actually give the presentation. Okay, that's basically it. And then for the rest of the lecture, Philipp will do a longer TableView demonstration to show you how to use the very powerful TableView controller to create like a basic application that you've seen in calendars, no, not calendars, contacts, and a lot of utility applications that use these things. All right, so I'm leaving again.
All right, is this on? Yes. Okay, so TableView controllers, and this will be a probably demo that takes the whole session. And the reason why we spend so much time on this is because TableView controllers are used very often throughout all the apps that you see and all the apps that are already provided on the iPhone. And they're used, for example, in the context to list there everything. And every time where you have more information that you want to show, a TableView controller is usually a good start how you want to display them. So let's go back to the code. I already created here a just the basic app to start us off. And first, the big or a big difference for TableViews is what sort of data they are showing. So they can range from dynamic TableViews that have a data source attached to them, and they load the information based on what is in that data source. And dynamically, if the data source changes, then the TableView, what it displays, will update as well. Or static TableViews that you set up beforehand, specify what they are showing, what they're linked to. You can use that, for example, for forms that you fill in, data in, and they never change from the style or the information that they show, but you can easily set them up. And we will cover both today. And what we're going to develop is a emoji dictionary. So basically a TableView that shows a bunch of emojis, and then later on lets us edit those and add new ones that we want. So from the starting point, we will just delete the view controller that was directly set up, and also in our storyboard, we'll remove the initial view controller that is shown here, so that we start completely clean. And first thing, to display our emojis or to hold our emojis, we will use a model file. So that is just a regular Swift file, and it's an emoji. And in that Swift file, we'll just create a struct that represents an emoji. So we have our struct emoji, and that just has a couple of variables. The symbol represented by a string, a name, also a string, the description. So what? Yes. Oh yeah, sure. I can make it bigger. That is preferences, and where do we have the tier? Or no, not large. That better? Yes, probably. So description, also a string, and a usage basically telling us when we want to use that emoji or when you would like to use that emoji. So we'll use that throughout the demo. And if you remember a struct, if we don't specify any initializer, we get the member-wise initializer so that we can just set every value that we have directly. So if we want to use a table view, we have a couple of different ways. So if I just select the table view, you can see there is the TableView Controller or just a table view or the TableView cell. And the difference between TableView Controller and the table view is if you just take the view, that is something you would add to another screen that you have. For example, if you just have the top part, you want to display a table view there and scroll through here. But on the bottom, there are other items that you want to interact with. You would do this or use the table view. If you want to have a table view over the whole screen, what you can start with is the TableView Controller. And that has a couple of benefits. For example, the protocols are already linked up so that the data source and the delegate is set up, and also a couple of functionalities. For example, if you want to edit a cell and the keyboard is coming up, the TableView Controller then automatically also reacts and scrolls up the content. If you remember from last week, if you use a scroll view, you would have to adjust the margins and the insets to cater to that behavior. But here, for the TableView Controller, stuff like that would already set in. So table views are also used if you just drag out a navigation controller. If we do like this, you can see there's already then a table view attached to that. And that is often helpful because then you get the stuff like the title and navigation properties already for free. So since we removed the main view controller at the moment, the app would not know where to start. And what we can do here is just select the navigation controller and set it here. Where do you have it? That it is the start. Okay. Did I? There, yes. I will always miss it. This arrow basically shows you where to start. And if I just select here that it is the initial view controller, that is probably still small, but yeah. Then the text will be better visible later on. But that sets that it is the starting view controller here. So, and just by setting this, if I would start it in the simulator, would get an empty table view controller that we can use. So that might now again take a while, but then it's so, and once that is set up, let's start. So now you see basically a couple of lines already here. I could drag around and I have all that functionality, but nothing to display yet. So to handle what our table view is showing, we'll use a new class for that. So create a new file, and we want to have a class that's specifically for a table view controller. So let's call this the, what do we have, emoji table view controller, and it is a subclass of a UI table view controller. And if I just create that, we can see we get a file that already has a bunch of different methods or method stumps that we could use. But what we need to set is that the TableView controller also in our storyboard actually uses now our new file. Do you remember? I can set it here. At the moment, it's just the normal TableView controller, but I can set it to use the emoji TableView controller. And now it is linked. Let's move it somewhere around. Okay, so let's have a look at basic settings for our TableView and stuff that we can set up here. So here we have our TableView, and like I said, there is the distinction between a dynamic TableView and a static TableView. And so far, if we just want to list different emojis that might change, might add and adjust them, so we'll start with a dynamic TableView. The style you can also set. So the plain one just lists everything one after another, but a grouped style has then more the heading as shown here on a background, and then the different cells. You can see that, for example, in the Settings app, where you have a sort of title and then the cells belonging to that group. The cells itself also have different properties. So let's just select here a cell. And you can select from a couple of different predefined ones, or basically create your custom cells. So the basic cell shows just the title. And a cell in general has three properties that you can set, and they're displayed differently based on the style that you select. They have a title, so that is the main text you want to show, a detail or a subtitle, and an image that you can select to that. And if you are in the basic style, the title is showing, and if you would have a image, it would be to the left of that of the title. Let me just zoom a little bit closer. So if I change now the style to the subtitle, then you would have the title at the top, subtitle underneath, and again, if there was an image attached to the cell, it would be here on the left. The left detail has the title and subtitle side by side, and the right detail has basically title to the left, subtitle way to the right. And the cells can also show more information, or show already what would happen if you tap on that cell, or give an indication to what would happen. And for that, you can use accessory views in here. So if I would just, for example, select a disclosure indicator, you can see here on the right, let's just zoom a little bit more in, you have this arrow pointing to the side. And that is often when you tap on that, it would switch to a new view and display information there. That is what this indicator shows. Detail disclosure, that you have information button showing me or telling you, well, there is more information. Check mark that you can attach to that, or just the general information. And for the accessory views, some of them can also have or react to touch events, meaning if you tap on the table or on the cell itself, has a different than reaction than if you select the indicator icon, the information button, for example. And you can react differently to those. So now that we have this information here spread from the left to the right, the problem is if you have a bigger screen. Let's just zoom out a little bit. For example, here on the iPad, and even worse if I would go on the horizontal side, you can see that, well, the left side and the right side are very far apart and would be hard to read. So what you can tell the TableView is that it should constrain to reading margins, and that should help you to, well, it should be easier than to read this stuff. Let me see if I can find it. Probably here. One. So here, follow readable width. If I just select that, you can see that everything here moves closer together, meaning that if I have a UI where it's important that I can see stuff on the left, see stuff on the right, and attach a link to that, selecting this can help you that it's easier to parse the information that you're showing. So, but we will stay on a smaller device, or let's just take that one, so we don't worry about that. So also for cells, important element is the identifier that you're using. The identifier is necessary because the TableView automatically does not show all the cells or the information that it can display, loads it not all at once. So imagine you have a TableView that has like 1,000 cells. Loading that all at the startup would consume a lot of memory. So what it instead does is only loads the cells that are currently visible and fills that with information. So if you start then scrolling, a couple of cells are scrolling out of the view, and they can actually then be reused as the cells that are coming into view. And the way the app decides what cells to use and whether there are still cells that are available is by using that identifier. So let's just call this the emoji cell, and I can use that then to identify my cells. So other things that I can say from the visibility, for example, currently the Apple looks more for bigger titles that are visible. Also similar if you look for the settings, they switch to larger titles, and you can set stuff like that in the navigation controller. If I select it here, you can see that the visualization of the title changes and is more in line with what is currently used in, for example, iTunes or the music app, whatever. So let's call this emoji dictionary. And now we want to display our emojis or a different set of emojis and have them basically in our cell. So we need stuff to visualize our data, or also to hold our data. And a good way to, let's just copy those, way to hold your information is an array. And we'll get, or we'll see why an array is actually a good way to display or hold the data that you want to show in your table view. And so what this is just an array of our emojis, and in there I'm just calling this member-wise initializer of the model class that we just created. So, and a TableView controller has two protocols that it needs to adhere to. Does it list it here somewhere? Or just open here in documentation. I thought it would show that here. Maybe not. But the protocols are the data source protocol and the delegate protocol, TableView delegate protocol. And the data source basically means that where it asks for the information that it should display. And so one of the, or there are three very important functions for this. The first one is number of sections. That is basically the TableView controller asking the data source, okay, how many different sections are there in the table that can react to that. So since we only here have one a section that we're showing, we don't have multiple ones, I can just adapt this here. And so if you would have multiple ones, and it depends on the setting where the controller or your table view is showing, this might have different ones. So the also, if I would not implement that, it would automatically just assume that you have one section. So I wouldn't even have to use that here, but for completeness, we use that. So the second method is asking how many rows do I have in this particular section. That I can say, okay, how much information do I need to show here? So, and here it's helpful if you have an array as a data source, because I can then here check whether the section that it's asking for, since we just have one, so if I'm in the section that the only section that we have, I can just return the amount of emojis that we have in our emojis array. And if, if there's nothing in there, then yeah, let's just return 0 if there should be a question for a different section. So that is now basically just setting up how many cells, how many information do I need. And the next important method is the cell for row at index path method. And that is the index path is a identifier for a particular object that you want to display. An index path consists of two different variables, or two different elements. The one is the section, so which section do I want to get the information from, and the row. So with this index path, I can decide, okay, which one, which part of my data do I want to display. Let's make here a little bit more space. And there are then a couple of steps that you have to do to create the cell. So this method here, as you can see, returns a cell that is then displayed on in your table view. And here you see the reuse identifier that we set actually then being used, because it first asks the table view to dequeue a reusable cell, meaning a cell that is not shown anymore. So, for example, if I scroll down, the cells that have now left, I can reuse them, and this would return a cell like this. And if none of those exists, then it would give me a new cell. So here, if I just use the emoji cell identifier that we specified, then it would give me a cell that corresponds to that. And so now I can configure the cell that we created. And so to do that, I need to fetch the model that I want to display. And again, the use of an array here is then makes it very easy, because I can just query that particular model that we have. So the emoji that I want to display would just be from our emojis, the indexPath.row. Because since we only have one section, I can just query the particular row. And that would give me the emoji that I want to display in this cell. And then I need to configure the cell with the information from our model. So if I just set here the title to what we want. Let me just, that should make this probably. And I want to have the symbol and the name. And the detail text label should be then just the description. Did they change it? Or did I move something? Is it not an optional anymore? What does it show me here? Oh, is it just text, right? Yes, not text. Now it also, yeah. All right, and then the last thing is returning that cell that you just created and set up to use the information from your model. So now, if I run this app, we can see, okay, we have the information that is specified in our array directly here. So, and we specify to have this right detail, so the title here on the left and the subtitle on the right, but I could also just go ahead and adjust this to have the subtitle style. Let's just start it again. And would have like this. So we have our title with the information and the detail then beneath it. All right, so that is just to display the information. So what if we want to react to information if the user interacts with the table view? That is where the delegate protocol then comes in handy, because there are lots of information that notify you of the interaction of the user with the table view. So, for example, if I just want to know, okay, what cell did the user tap at, there's the method that did select row at index path. So similar to the data source method. So you see, for the table view, there are a lot of different methods that you can implement. So we would only want the moment did select row at index path, and similar to the data source, the index path tells me which cell has been tapped. So if I want to get then the model again, or the emoji that was tapped, can just query that from our arrays, from our array. So emojis and path.row. And then at this point, let's just print it out. And just to see what the index path looks like, let's also print that one. That should be all that is necessary to just see when I select here a cell, can see, okay, this emoji has been selected, and the index path, the two values, so 0, 0 for the first one, and if I select the die here, it's still, well, we only have one section, so the section is 0, but the position then is 7. That is the element that I've selected. So any questions so far for the basic setup, basic usage, and the different delegates or data source methods? All right. If that's all clear, let's move on to adjusting or manipulating the table view a little bit more. So one thing that is that happens very often when you have table views listed is that you want to change the order they're displayed in. So you remember or possibly have seen on iOS, if you have the little lines on the side, you can just pick it up and drag it to a different location, and it has the visualization matching for that. And we will just implement this here as well. And to be able to do that, there are 3 different things that need to be set up. So the first thing is that the cell needs to know, okay, well, whether it actually would show a reordering control, because some cells might not be, you would not want them to move. Then the table needs to be in an editing state. that people can actually, or that it accepts changes. And then you need to implement a method that tells the data source how the model changed and that it is adapted to that. Because the table view is always just a representation of the data source that you have. So first thing, to set or tell the cell that it should show a reordering control or can show a reordering control, we can just do it before we return that cell. So you have this property shows the reorder control, and we'll just set this here now to true. So to set the table view into the editing mode, there are different ways how you can do that. So a straightforward one would just to set it directly at the table view. So there is the set editing. I could set here, yeah, well, now you should be in the editing mode. But that would then be always in there. You need to handle that yourself. There's also an easier way that is shown here, where you can just implement that the table view itself should, in the title, have the toggle between editing mode and not. So let's move it here to the left, so that the left bar button item switches between the different states. So let's see. So then the last part is to tell the data source that in, the order of the cell changed and that stuff moved around. I think there is already one here. Let's see. So we have here rearranging the table view. I'll just uncomment this method. It's move the row at a certain position to a specific position. So for both, we have the index path. So what similar to what we've already seen, I first would here now get the emoji that I want to move around, and then remove it at that particular position and insert it at the new position where the user dropped the item. So to get the moved emoji, we just take it from our data source, and we remove it at the specific location that we get from our index path. So we take it from index path to row, and at that point I have that emoji basically set up, and I don't. It is removed from our data source at the moment, and then I insert it at the position where the user dropped it off. So I take my moved emoji and add it at that location. So we get the to location here, and I'm just adding it at that position. So at that point, we've changed our data source, but now we want to show the information also visible in the table view. And for that, I can just tell the table view to reload all its data. And at that point, it would query the data source again and show the information. And the reload data is something you would also, for example, use in a view will appear method that you can say, okay, yeah, you will now be displayed. Please update what your current visualization is, and loads the different information. So let's start that again. And you can see here we have our edit button at the top left. And if I select that, the table changes from a non-editing to a editing view. And also the button here automatically updates, and that is something you get for free if you just use this setting here in the view did load, that you set it to edit button item. So now here I've, the minus, but I also have here my reordering controls, and I could just pick one element up and just move it around. And I have this animation for that. I don't need to adjust that and can drop it wherever I want. And that is all that is necessary to move stuff around. Yeah, so far we're not using the deletion control here. And if I would not want to display that, I can also specify that how the cell should look like in an editing state. And there's also the editing style. Now that's commit editing style. Is there some? No. So we'll add that ourselves. If we want to just not show that anymore, is there? Can I just? Sure. Editing style. If it's so big, probably this one. This looks good. So this asks basically for the editing style that a particular cell should have. And here, if we just return none, it would not show that minus there at the front anymore. There are different ones also for delete that would show the minus, or I'm not sure whether it's called append or add. Or insert, maybe one of these three, then would have a little plus. That is something, for example, if you see in the contact list, if you add a new contact, you have cells that have this style, because if you just select that, then you could, and adds a new cell for that you can then adapt. So far, we've used basic or predefined cells. But not all the cells that you or information that you want to display fall into one of these four categories that satisfies everything that you want. So you can also create your custom cells. And here you have then again a view that you can lay out however you want. And we've talked about auto layout and everything like applies here then as well. So if I have here my emoji cell, let's just design a new one. So I'm just taking a stack view and putting it in here, and I want to have it fill out the whole cell. So no space there. And constraining to the margins leaves then the standard size to the borders. So everything that you set up will still have then the normal custom distance to the outer sides of the TableView cell. So I add that, and inside there I want to have a label for our emoji, and I also want to have two labeled side by side, so I'll attach that here. And inside our vertical stack view, let's just set it up. One label there and another label. So I want to have basically a set that shows the symbol, the name, and the description. So that's why I need the three labels for. At the moment, our vertical stack view doesn't show everything, so we'll distribute everything equally. So I have them side by side. And what else do we need? In here, I would like to show the emoji. Let's just take that one. That also looks good, but I just want to have the symbol for that. And at the moment, our left cell here or left part here is way too large. Another thing for auto layout is called content hugging priority, meaning how much should the size of the cell depend on what is inside of that. Currently, everything in here is set to 251, but if I would just adjust this here to 252, meaning it has a higher priority that the size just fits or wraps around the content, it just takes the space that our emoji here needs. So basically that is the setup, but to control and to fill those information, we use a new file that is also Cocoa Touch class, but now not for a TableView controller, but for a TableView cell. So where do I have that? So emoji TableView cell and a subclass of TableView cell. Add that. So what we need then to set up is connect our cell, or the creation of our cell, to our file. So first, let's, for our cell, set the class that we just created, so emoji TableView cell. And then I'm linking up the different outlets that I can specify those information. So let's just move that here to the side that I have more space. This is not the correct one. Select here our cell and link up the different labels here. Probably it's easier to do it like this. Let's just take that one. Outlet, and that is our symbol label. And the top one here I want to have as the name label. And last one, the description label. So now we have the outlets connected, and just make this bigger. What we can also do, currently we set the properties of the cell in our row at index path method. So I need to know where everything is, and I am hooking it up there. What we can also do is move that responsibility to the actual cell. So if I have here just a function that updates the cell itself. So we are here in our cell and create a method that it updates our cell with an emoji. So what we just do here is set the different properties ourselves. So we have our symbol label. Then the name label. And our description label. No, not that. Description label. So and that sets up basically the different labels itself. And the only thing that we then have to change, if we have here our method that creates the cell and sets it all up, instead of setting all our the content there ourselves, we can just first tell the cell that we've queried that it is an emoji TableView cell. And since we only have this type of cell for the identifier, the reader's identifier that we set, can just cast it directly. So now the cell that we have, if I just select it here, you can see that the type is of an emoji TableView cell. And I can then just call update with the emoji that we queried from our data source, and it will take that directly. So if I run this, you can see now that we have our new custom cells that we created with the emoji here at the side, the name and the description then on top of each other. All right. So for the editing, at the moment we can move them around, but if we want to delete them, similar to everything that we've looked at so far, there are 4 different steps that we have to do. So first is specifying which rows can actually be edited. And this is not a required step. It's just if you have cells that are not supposed to be edited, that you need to specify that. Then specifying the different editing styles. If you remember, at the moment we've set it that there's it does not show a editing style or has no editing style, meaning the minus is not shown or a plus or whatever. And then when the edit happens, so if, for example, if the minus is shown, the user tapped on that, we need to react to that and handle this request and update our data source then as well. So first thing, at the moment we've set that we have no, or the editing style none, but we can also return the editing style delete. That would show the minus sign there at the top. So we also have the method commit editing style at row. Let's just, and all those methods that I'm just uncommenting here, that is what you get if you have a subclass of the UI TableView controller. They are automatically then shown or created for you. So what is this? Interesting, they have not updated their own properties here. So it's not the style has changed. It's not directly one another. One is the now a property basically of UI TableView cell. We just fix that. Should move that. Interesting. Okay. So and in that this method, it checks basically what is the style that was selected or tapped. So if I'm in the delete state, I have here currently the animation set up. So what would the table view show to the user when this control has been tapped? So delete rows would just fade it out, but we also need to adapt our model for that, because otherwise, yeah, once I reload the data or it update, it would show everything again. So what we just need to do is take our emojis array and remove the emoji at that particular time location. So and that is everything that I need to do for the deletion. So if I start this, if we then switch back to the editing state, you would see that the minus here appears again. And if I select that, that is also something, since you set that style, it will make sure that the user experience is consistent then, that I have the confirmation question if I'm sure I want to delete that. If I do that, I have this flying away animation. And also automatically, if I swipe from right to left, this is also something that you get automatically. You don't have to do that all yourself. It is basically from the setup of the table view uses that consistent behavior. All right. Any questions that popped up? Or everything just in a daze and not caring anymore? Perfect. Okay. So far, this was now a dynamic TableView controller. So take a look at those. What other delegate methods you have, other data source methods, how you can react to input and handle those. So now let's move to static table views. And again, I'm just creating here a new one. Let's move that around. Come on. So, and like I said, static TableView controllers, you can set them up in your interface builder and specify the UI there. And that is something you can use, for example, for forms and stuff like that. So, but first, if we want to move here, let's go from, if the user taps on our emoji cell, we want to open then a screen where I can edit the description, edit the name and stuff like that, and then save it again. So I'm creating a segue and yeah, present it modally. And this segue, I want to react to that so that I can pass over my the selected emoji. So we'll give that segue a name. And also, we want to add new emojis to our dictionary. So we also want to have an add button. And let's take a bar button item and just drag it here in our title, and just want to have an add. So that gives us the plus symbol, and I want to move from there as well. And since I don't need to pass anything from our dictionary to the creation for the emoji, I don't need to give that a name. So going to the view controller that shows us the information or allows us to adjust the description, name, whatever of an emoji, or create a new one. And for that, I have a specific set of elements that I need to show or manipulate. And so that calls for a static TableView controller. And also, do I want it grouped or not? I don't care at this point. Let's take grouped. So, and if I would say for every property of our emoji, I want to have a different set. So we need 4 sections. And you can see here in our hierarchy that I have for every section then a different element here as well. So, and I can specify how many rows should be in each section. And let's just, for this, we want to specify the symbol, name, description, and usage parameter. So let's call that first one symbol, and has just one cell. We have our name, one cell, and description, and also for the usage. And in each of those, I want to have a text field so I can adjust the different properties or show the different properties. And let's just edit everywhere. And fill the whole cell with the text field. just quickly do that for all the others. So, and since everything here conforms to the same ways how to set it up as for auto layout, but has the information that, for example, if I have my text field at the bottom of the screen and I tap it, it would automatically slide up and make space for the keyboard. I wouldn't have to handle that myself. That makes it simpler to react to those and makes it easy to create such forms. So, and now, similar to before, if we want to react to the information here or get the information from our from what is inside the text field, we create a new controller for this. So let's call this. So for the add and edit TableView, and again, subclass of TableView Controller. Since we now have a static TableView, we need to remove the data source methods that we have here. So otherwise, the app would override our settings from the interface builder and would look for dynamic properties, so like the number of sections and number of rows. Since we set everything up in interface builder, we don't need it here then anymore. Or we need to remove it here to have that. Then, so for this, we also set the class to be our new AddEdit TableView controller, and also we need to link up our outlets. So, yes, and let's just open this over here. No. And there again we have just the symbol. Our name. For the description. And for the usage. And since we can select an emoji from our initial table view, and I want to would like to display it here, I also need to have a property for this, so that we could show this emoji directly at the start. So we have a variable emoji. And it should be an optional emoji, because it could be set if I go for an editing mode, or it could not be set if I am creating a new one here. So how do I get to this or set this emoji if I'm moving from my initial view controller to this one? And like we talked last week, there is also the prepare for segue. If you remember, we named the edit segue if I want to edit a particular emoji. So in our prepare for segue method, what I can do here is first check, okay, is it now the edit segue that should be performed? So I'm just checking whether the identifier edit emoji, which we set before. And in that case, I want to first get the information which cell was selected, which emoji do I want to change. And for this, if I just tap a cell, at the moment we're let's see. We have here this did select row at index path. We just print something out. We don't need that anymore. But the cell is selected when I tap on that. And now it wants to transition then to the new table view. But at this point, I can query which cell is currently selected. So the index path is then for our table view, the index path for selected row. And that would give me the row that is currently set up. And since we are here, this, as you've seen, is an optional. But since we are in a method that is triggered when I'm selecting a cell, I can directly unwrap that since it can't be empty at that point. Then, as you've seen in the, or if we've set up in the storyboard, from there we move to a navigation controller, and the reason for that is simply that gives us easily here access to the navigation bar that we can, what do we set that? That just, or change it to this. But the first element then that we're moving towards is a navigation controller, and in there we have our AddEdit TableView controller. So first we have the navigation controller, and that's just the destination of our segue. But since we know what sort of a UI view controller it is, we can just cast it then to a navigation controller. And in that navigation controller, we have our AddEdit TableView controller. And so we can also get to that directly by asking the navigation controller for the knocking out, yes, okay. For the first item, and we can as well cast this directly to an AddEdit TableView controller, since that is the only view controller that's currently or can be in that one. So where did I? Oh, it's first. What's it called? First view controllers. First, yes. So a navigation controller has a list or a property that holds all the view controllers that are shown in here, and I can get there to the first one. So now I have both the index path to the emoji that I want to set. So I can actually just get that here. That is the emoji that the user tapped on, and I have my AddEdit emoji controller, TableView controller, and I can then set the emoji of this to the emoji that was selected. So, and at that point, the newly shown TableView controller also knows of the emoji that was selected. So, and all that we just need to do is check when I start displaying this TableView controller whether the emoji is set, and if so, then just populate the different text fields that we have. So just check that the emoji is set, and if that is the case, then I can just update my information here. Just show the symbol, the name and the usage. So basically the properties of our emoji. All right, so everything's set there. And now if I just start this. Probably all crashing. So now if I select an emoji here, I'm opening this new view controller and everything is filled in. But yeah, at the moment, this is all we can do. We move the information over, but at the moment, yeah, we can already edit information here, but we can't commit them, save them, or just go back. So first thing what we then need for that is a segue that goes back to our original table view. Then if you remember from last week, one way or a good way to do that is to have an unwind segue. So in a segue that the other or other table views can call to go back to this particular one. So we create an unwind segue or a segue that the other controllers know. It's an IB action. And let's just call it unwind to emoji table view. And the only property that an unwind segue needs is a UI storyboard segue. And at the moment, we don't need to do anything in here. So in our edit or AddEdit TableView controller, we want to have options to cancel, so to go back without a change, and to go back when I saved something. So again, we'll use bar button items for this. So first one, let's say this should be a save one. And if I just now drag to the exit segue symbol here, I get the connection that I can unwind to our emoji TableView controller. And if I'm saving that, I need to know about this particular segue. So we give it also an identifier, call it save unwind, so that if it's selected, I know about that. And the other one is just cancel. And again, I'm just hooking that up to the unwind segue. In this case, I also don't need the name because I don't change anything in our model, so I don't need to be notified about that. So what we then need to know is, well, if I want to save that, I need to be sure that everything is filled out, that everything has been set. So because otherwise I could save an emoji that doesn't have a symbol or stuff like that. So we use a method to check whether everything has been filled in. Let's just add that here. And that is just a method that updates the save button state. And and what this method just does is checking whether the symbol, text field, or the information in there has anything at the moment in there. And way we can do that, this style. If you remember, this is basically querying whether something in that text field and that property exists. And if so, it holds the content of that text field, and otherwise it would just contain an empty string. And let's just do this for the others. and usage. So and with these, I can just check whether stuff is in there, whether something is in those text field, and I need to know about I need an outlet for our save button, that I can adjust the properties of that, the correct one, so save button. So there's just is enabled property, and then if it's not enabled, it's grayed out. The user cannot tap on that. But here I want to set that, and it's basically checking whether our text fields are filled in. So whether the symbol text, I can query whether it's empty or not, and of course then negate that because I want to display or enable the button if it's not empty, and connect that to all the other properties as well. So name text is empty, or the usage text is empty, or the description text is empty. So and that will automatically update that. So at what points do I need to react to that, or do I need to update that? First, in the view.did_load. So, for example, if I load an emoji that is already created and I want to just to edit that, everything would be filled out. So here I update that, and then every time something changes in my text fields, I want to react to those. So to be able to do that, also creating an IB action that I can link to my text views. So text editing changed, and just have UI text field as the sender, and in here I'm updating the save button. So now I still need then to hook up my text fields to this. Let's go storyboard. Where do I have? Far down. So, and essentially now for every of these text fields, I want to check if something has been typed in, not just when it's ended or when the editing ended, but when the editing changed. Meaning, if some key press happened, then I want to see whether, okay, now I would update the save button or display the save button. So again, editing changed. And I can connect that all basically to the same action, because it just checks for all the text field whether everything is set up correctly. Come on. All right, and that should be all to just display the correct state of the save button. So if I select stuff here, the save button is active because everything is in there. But if I would just remove that, it would gray out and react to that. And if I press cancel, I'm going back, nothing has changed. Similarly here, if I have nothing in there, it doesn't adjust. So now the only thing missing is if I added a new emoji, or changed it, and I press save, that it then actually also is changed on our initial view controller. So, and again, what I need to do is first in our AddEdit TableView Controller, I'm checking which of the two buttons was pressed. And I can see that by the identifier that we set for our segue. So, and since I don't care about anything if just cancel was pressed, I'm just checking whether the segue identifier is save unwind. Otherwise, I don't do anything. But afterwards, now I can be sure, okay, I have a new emoji and it needs to be set in our initial view controller. So I'm just getting then the information from our text fields. So get what is in there. And I can, again, unwrap that explicitly because I can only be in this state if I press the save button, and I can only press the save button if everything is filled in. So if I want to do more logic that I can't save if there's not an emoji symbol in my symbol, that can also check here or at a different location. So the name is what is in our name text field. The description and usage. Come on. And with this information, I can just create a new emoji that we want to use. So with that, do I have my? Why doesn't it show me my? I just want to have the member WiSe initializer that I don't have to. Come on. Let's do it like this. I don't have to type everything. Symbol. That should be emoji name. So, and we've now created that, and let's. Okay, it needs that initializer then. Let's just try that out. Why does it not show that? Well, then we have to do it manually. So that should work. Does it work? Does it complain? No. So what we've now done is set our property here to the new emoji that we want to save. So now this is has all been set up. And how do we get to this? Is by using the unwind segue that we got here. Because if we now, if this is called, we know, okay, there's a segue coming into our initial view controller, initial table view controller, and there I can similarly just check whether the identifier matches the save unwind. And if so, then I will grab the now emoji property of that source view controller and enter it into, oh, that's wrong here. And enter it into our data source and into our table view. So what still does what have? The source view controller, so where our segue originated, is segue source. And since we all know based on the identifier where it came from, what does it want here? Oh, yes, of course. Yep. We can cast it directly to the AddEdit TableView controller. So since we know this is where it needs to come from. And then we just unpack the emoji that was created and fill or create a new element in our table view. So let's just unwrap that emoji. So source view controller emoji. And then to decide whether there's something that was added or completely new or changed, we can still check whether there is a selected row in our table view. So if we selected an emoji, we got to this view controller where we could edit our stuff, and if we save and come back, that cell is still selected. So we can see if we can actually find a selected row. So selected index path by checking whether our table view has still an index path for a selected row. And if that is the case, then we adjusted or changed an emoji. Not that. And so what we then do is just go to our array, to our the data source, and add that selected index path, adjust the emoji with the new one, or change the emoji to the new one. And then, yeah, of course, we need to reload our table view. We can reload everything or reload the specific parts that we showed. If there's a different animation for that is then can be used to be consistent with everything. So to reload at a specific index path, we only have one, so we just enter that here, selected index path, and for the animation, none. Have no particular one. And that would already then update our edited state. If that is not the case, so if no index path can be found that has a particular selection, that means we created a new emoji and did not adjust that. So in that case, we create a new index path that we want to update our information with, or insert our emoji at. So for the row, it is in the last state, so the next element, so at the amount of emojis that we have. And for the section, since we only have one, it's at section 0. And then we just append our new emoji to our element, our array. So now it is there in the end. And similar to the changing, we just insert a new row at the, what do we have? New index path. Yep, in the end, and another animation that we have, for example, is automatic. So let's try that out, whether that worked. First, let's go for the editing. A symbol that I want to add. Can I show the keyboard? software keyboard. Ooh. So I want to add this one maybe. Name is with sunglasses. Description. Let's make it shorter. Usage in the sun, whatever. Now the button here updated that we can save it. And now if we save it and go back, we have here our newly created emoji with sunglasses. And if I want to edit something, for example, if I just want to say he wears a cap, and I update that, then it updates here as well, and it stays at the position. So there are a number of different things that you can also do, is that the cells react automatically to the content in there. For example, if I want to have multiple lines here, the TableView cell would actually need to increase, but we won't get into details there. If you want to go into more detail about this, this is the example that is also in the book that we're using here. So if you want or need more details, want to look something up, want to have more explanation, have a look at that as well. Otherwise, are there any questions that you have from this? This was now a more extended demo, not only about the table views, but also navigation between. The reason why we went for that is that you have or seen at least a little bit more how to knot that all together, that it's not just, okay, these are the properties, set this, but how does it work in a working application, so to say. So if there are no questions, then that's it for today. Tomorrow there's no lecture because there's the student council thingy. So next week we'll then continue saving data, system view controllers and stuff like that. All right, see you then. Bye.
This content was provided by RWTH, Aachen University.